3 toxic traits to leave behind in 2024. Guys, welcome back to the King's Legacy podcast and the final episode before Christmas. I hope you're all ready for some well-deserved special time with your families. Before we dive into what we want from 2025, it's critical to reflect on the lessons from this year, the wins, the challenges, and the things that we need to leave behind. Today, I'm sharing 3 toxic traits that I've seen come up over and over again this year. Traits that, if left unchecked, will absolutely sabotage your relationships, your happiness, and your leadership. If you're already avoiding these, keep it up. But if these hit a little too close to home, let's shine some light on them right now so we can leave them behind in 2024. Because I can promise you, they're not serving the best version of you. The very first one, stop mind reading. Rich, what the is mind reading? I ain't no magician, and it's exactly that, and that's the point. Mind reading is when you assume what someone else is thinking without actually asking. And let me tell you right now, it's extremely dangerous. It's unproductive and it can destroy your relationships. Here's how it usually shows up. A guy comes to me and says, Rich, my wife and I are struggling. We're arguing constantly, there's tensions all the time, and intimacy is long gone. I think she's thinking about calling it quits, and I don't know what to do about it. The key phrase here is, I think she's thinking. And that is mind reading. Sure, there might be some signs that there's something wrong, but unless you've had an open conversation about it, you don't know what's actually going on. And the longer you stew on your assumptions, the worse it gets. I recently worked with a guy who let this whole thing spiral, and to the point in which he was actually thinking about calling a solicitor to talk about how the assets might be divided. And I had to say something. I had to step in this time and say, mate, she might just need a hug and a kiss. Stop mind reading all the time. Instead of jumping to conclusions, start opening up a dialogue. A simple, hey, is there anything on your mind? Or how are we doing? Can make all the difference in these moments. Mind reading wastes energy, creates unnecessary conflict, and takes you further from the truth. Leave it behind in 2024. The second thing, stop focusing on what you don't want. You've probably heard me mention this year. When I first talk to guys, I'll often ask, so what do you want? And the answers normally go something like this. I want my wife and kids under the same roof. I don't want us to be fighting anymore. I don't want every disagreement to feel like it's the end of the world. And I don't want to feel like I can't speak my truth. And I also don't want us living like roommates. Do you hear the problem here? Start with one thing they want, but then it's a whole flood of everything that they don't want. Problem is that your unconscious mind doesn't process negatives. So if you spend your day focusing on what you don't want, you're effectively programming yourself to attract more of that same thing. Instead, learn to reframe it and focus on what you do want. Like this, I want my family connected and thriving under one roof. I want calm and open conversations with my wife, and I want intimacy, trust, and laughter in my relationship. When you focus on what you do want, you give your mind the direction it needs to start moving toward it. So if you've been caught in the I don't want loop, leave that behind in 2024. Now, the third and final thing, number 3, stop treating your kids like KPIs. Woo! This one's for all the driven dads out there who are crushing it at work but struggling at home. Work requires you to think logically, prioritize tasks, and often set emotions aside to make decisions. But if you bring that same mindset home, it's a recipe for disaster. Your kids and wife aren't metrics to manage. They're people who need to feel seen, heard, and valued. I worked with a guy earlier this year who couldn't figure out why things were blowing up all the time at home. He was absolutely crushing it at work, but tensions were through the roof with his wife and kids as soon as he stepped through the door. After digging in, we realized he was stuck in work mode. Every interaction with them was about fixing problems instead of connecting with his family. We installed mechanisms to help him shift gears. Things like taking a quick walk, diving into the ocean, and also doing some box breathing before stepping inside the house. Within 1 week, he saw a massive improvement. Key lesson here is that your work hat doesn't belong at home. Take it off and put your dad hat on, and meet your family with the presence and connection they need. Wrapping up, so there you have it. 3 toxic traits to leave behind in 2024. Stop mind reading, stop focusing on what you don't want, stop treating your kids and wife like KPIs. Reflect on these over the holidays, and as you head into 2025, think about how you want to show up for your family. If you're ready to dive deeper into any of these lessons and create real change, you know where to find me. Let's make 2025 your best year yet. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next King's Legacy podcast.